Good morning, y'all. So, here we are. It's Tuesday. I have to keep reminding myself it's Tuesday. I'm going to turn the slide on. No, not. That's terrible. Okay. Put my microphone a little closer. Not quite in frame. Anyway. All right. Good morning. It is Tuesday, May 27th in my part of the world. And so we are moving on. And today we're going to talk about failure. And I think there's a difference between failing and failure. Not going to lie, I expected this room to be cleared out by today. I expected that I could get it done in 2 weeks, that I could make it ready to go, and that everything would be hunky-dory. Oh, that's the problem sometimes with having ADHD is you think you can get so much more done in a short amount of time than you actually can. And it hurts. It hurts to say, no, I couldn't do that. No, I didn't make it happen. No, I didn't push through. And it's okay to acknowledge that. What I sometimes tip over into, and I think a lot of people tip over into, is equating that with being a failure. And I'm not going to lie, I'm one of those people who can do that because you're sometimes conditioned to look at everything you haven't done. I'll give you an example from when I was a child, and this is how things stick with you, right? When I was a kid, 6th grade, I had always been a good student. But that particular quarter, I got all A's and 1 B. The B I got was in health. I don't remember why I got it. But what I will never forget is that when my parents saw my report card, there was only one thing they talked about. What's with the B? That's literally what I got for that. To the point where my mom or dad, I think it was my mom, called the school to talk to my teacher to find out why I got a B in health. Turns out of almost 60 kids in 2 classes, only one person got an A. Only one. My parents said that should have been me. We had no focus on the fact that I was in advanced math, I was in advanced English, and I got A's in those. It was that B in health that we could not get past. And when I say that we couldn't get past it, the rest of the year, the other 3 quarters of my year, I got straight A's. All that was ever talked about with that report card was the B. Fast forward to my oldest child. And this is how we take our situation and change things. My oldest child never got anything but straight A's from kindergarten through 6th grade. Nothing but A's. When he got to 7th grade, between 6th and 7th grade, he actually skipped a year of math that he, did a workbook over the summer, His first semester or first quarter of his 7th grade year was just when we could go on and look at grades before we got the actual report cards. I pulled up his grades, and guess what? All A's and 1 B. So I called him in, and I said, here's your report card. And he looked at it, and he just kind of shook his head. And I was like, okay. Now, this is a kid who worked really hard to get good grades. And I said, so you got your first B ever. How do you feel about that? And he looked at me and he said, Mom, I did my best. And I said, well, that's all we've ever asked. And then he looked at me and said, but it won't happen again. And it didn't. And June, that year it did not. The next year it did not. Now, when he got to high school, there were a few other things that happened, and we can go into that later. But it was so interesting how he framed it himself. And in our school system, because we have a lot of really smart kids, there's a rule in place, or not a rule, but it's just a guideline, and they send it home every year, that if your child is getting an A in a class, they prefer that you don't come in for a conference. Because unlike some schools where they can't get a parent to come in, ours get overcommitted. And sometimes the parents whose kids do really well are the ones who are the most interested, so that the parents whose kids aren't doing as well can't actually even get an appointment. So they just ask that if your child has A's, please do not come in for a conference. So I came into the conference and I said to the teacher, I said, did anybody tell you he skipped a year of math? And she said, what? I said, he skipped a year of math from 6th to 7th grade. He learned on his own over the summer. And I said, nobody told you that, did they? And I had asked him to tell her, and he didn't want to say anything. He didn't want to be, he didn't want to be pointed out, or I don't know the word I really want, but like he didn't want everybody to know that that's what had happened. And she's like, no, but that just really explains a lot about your child. And I was like, what do you mean? And she said, well, he didn't smile for the first 6 weeks of class. She said, I was actually very worried about him because he just didn't, he never looked happy. He never laughed. He was always just so serious. And I said, you reviewed for 6 weeks, right? And she said, yeah. I said, that was all new material, all new classroom material for him. And she said, oh, I wish I had known that. I said, I kept telling him to tell you, and he asked me not to tell you. So, here's where we are. I said, and she said, and then suddenly on week 7, he relaxed. I said, new material. She said, yep, it was new to everybody. I said, yeah. I said, I get it, And so the reframe on that for me was that while he could have had a different experience, he made the best of the experience that he had. And I thought that was a really cool thing. I also learned to let him lead what was important to him. Because when I grew up, what was important to me was always, I liked art and history and English. Those were the things that I loved in school. My father was an engineer and couldn't understand how any of that could ever help me in life. And it has helped me a lot. That's why I do what I do. My father would never do this willingly. Even though my father taught college level classes, he would never do what I'm doing here and sit in front of a camera. So anyway, the other thing is sometimes we look at things like that. A B in health is not a failure. It's just a B. It's still above average, right? It's still okay. So wrapping that all around in what we're doing right now, my goal was to have this room done, paint this week, so I can put it back together and be done with it before I left. Not going to happen. But it's so much buzz. I can't call that a failure. I just can't. And I think that's what I really wanted to talk to you. So like the next thing, and this is big for me. This is a lot. This whole cabinet has so much stuff in it. And that's going to be where I look today. And I'll probably work with, my husband decided to stay home today. My son will be here today. And that's what I'm going to work my 15 minutes on. Now, I'm going to wait for them because there are several things in here. And I know they're going to probably tell me to get rid of most of it because I keep okay, I have, and it's, if I use my phone, I have an apparatus. And I forgot to date this from when I bought it. I think I can look online and find out. But usually I keep stuff like this until the warranties are gone and then I get rid of it. But then you find out later on, for example, I still have the case for my Apple, my iPhone, sorry. And when you go to sell those or get rid of them, if you have the case, it's actually worth more. So, it's those things you just gotta balance out. But I have a screencaster that I didn't even realize. Again, I'm putting things together so that I know what I have and I can take inventory of things. This is nuts. I'm not sure which. We have two Roku remotes because we have one upstairs. Things like that. I have the charger for this, but I don't use the stand. Do I keep the stand? Do I not keep the stand? Sometimes I need somebody else's input. This is my Fitbit. I've had it for a long time, and while you don't see it, it's in my pocket. Actually, I say I've had it for a long time. I've used a Fitbit for a long time. That was a DNA test I took. And there's no information in it. So yeah, this is one that easily, but it's got an email address in it. That's what it is. Okay. Anyway, that will go in recycle. That was easy. But, I do get bogged down. These are some other things. This was a system. It's interesting. I've talked about organizational systems before, and this was part of an organizational system. And did I fail at it? No. Because when I focused on it, I did really well with it. And there's different zones. And at the time, what they had you do is they had you put something on these different cards, and then you would move the cards. It worked, but it's honestly, I like having it digital because then I can change things around. And that makes sense. But I haven't moved all of this stuff. I do actually have something called a whole home reset that I've worked with, and I wrote an ebook, and I'd like to make sure that everything in here goes is in the ebook that I wrote. And it's not something that I published, and maybe it is something that I will publish. But there are things that need to be done in here before I get rid of it. And maybe that'll be part of, the rest of this process. I think I've talked about my creativity boot camp before. I'm not even sure what this is. Oh, yes, I am. Now I know. Okay, that should go with my Christmas stuff. But I did do some painting. And these are my painting supplies, and I keep them around because at some point I'll probably let my grandkids use them and play with them. And that's just, these are screen covers for our iPads. Just all kinds of different things. There's kind of a mishmash in here. But then there's also things like this. And I don't know why I hang on to these things sometimes. It's a road atlas. Now, granted, the United States has not changed that much. The major roads and stuff. But it's from 1998. And I have a more updated one. It's actually not even mine. It's my son's. But so this is something that can just go. But it also wasn't mine. My husband came into our marriage with this. Or I guess we bought it together. We would have been married by then. So I need to talk to him about that. But then, yeah, I have a second road atlas. So there's no reason to have 3 road atlases of the United States when we've got an updated one. So, but for some weird reason, I always feel I need to talk some of those things through. So anyway, I am going to spend 15 minutes on this, but I'm going to spend it with somebody else because I do need some perspective on it. And that being said, we are at our 15 minutes. So if you joined me to declutter, I hope you did while you were listening. And I will definitely get my 15 minutes done a little bit later. I wish you a wonderful week. I will be at the same time this week every day. Fortunately, no morning doctor appointments, thank goodness. And so we have Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday to finish out the month. And then next month for me, I will be working during the day, especially since I'll be in an earlier time zone and my husband has to be to work very early. I'll be able to jump in this normal time, and I'll actually probably be done working around noontime here. So, because there's a lot, we're getting up much, much earlier than we normally do. So anyway, I wish you all a wonderful week. Remember, just because you didn't meet the goal doesn't mean you failed. And sometimes we teach what we most need to learn. And I needed to remember that this weekend. We got a lot done. And if you're part of my Moving Toward Better on the Facebook page, I'm going to be sharing that again, where you'd be amazed how every week I have to just kind of keep up with the sweet spot, which is my kitchen table. And I will be posting before and after photos of that a little bit later today. And we'll see how the week goes, because it's going to be a busy one, guys, getting ready to travel. So I love you all. I wish you a wonderful day, an even better week. And I will see you tomorrow. Have a good one. Love you all. Bye-bye.